Alexander Hale didn't know that one woman was about to change his whole life, forever. Alexander Hale was a man who always won. Everyone in New York knew his name. He was rich, smart, and never afraid of anyone. People said he had a cold heart, but he didn't care. Winning was all that mattered to him. One night, Alexander stood on the rooftop of a fancy club high above the city. The lights below looked like stars. Expensive music played, people laughed, and everyone acted like they were important. But no one stood out more than Alexander Hale. His best friend, Damian Cross, walked over with a grin on his face. "Alex, you think you can win everything," Damian said, joking but serious. Alexander smirked. "Because I can." Damian raised his glass. "Okay then, I have a challenge for you." Alexander didn't look away. He loved challenges. They were the only things that made him feel alive. "Tell me," he said. Damian took a slow sip before speaking. "I bet you can't marry a woman who isn't your type and stay married for 6 months." Alexander didn't react at first. It was too simple, too small. But Damian wasn't finished. "You must marry a woman who doesn't care about your money, a woman you cannot control, a woman who won't fall for you easily." Alexander raised an eyebrow. "And if I win? I'll give you $1 million. Alexander laughed softly. "Money doesn't impress me, Damian." Damian leaned closer. "I know, but losing will." Alexander's smile slowly disappeared. Losing was something he never allowed. After a moment, he said, "Fine, give me the name." Damian smiled like he'd been waiting for this moment. "Serafina Vale." Alexander frowned slightly. He had never heard that name before, and he knew almost everyone worth knowing. "Who is she?" Damian's smile widened. "A woman who won't be impressed by you." Alexander almost laughed. "Everyone is impressed by me." Damian shook his head. "Not her. She's different. She turned down 2 CEOs. She ignored a prince. She walked out on a senator during dinner. She doesn't care about money or power." Now Alexander was interested. A woman he couldn't impress? A woman he couldn't predict? This was new. This was rare. This was a game he suddenly wanted to play. Alexander lifted his glass. "Set up the meeting." Damian tapped his glass to Alex. "Get ready, my friend. This will be the hardest thing you've ever tried." Alexander looked out at the city again. He didn't know that Serafina Vale would soon shake his world, break his rules, and make him face parts of himself he had spent years hiding. He didn't know she carried secrets. He didn't know she had a reason to meet him. He didn't know she had her own plan. And the game had already begun. Alexander Hale walked into the restaurant with the calm confidence of a man who owned the world. The place was quiet, expensive, and private, just the way he liked it. Soft lights glowed against dark walls, and slow music played in the background. But even with all the luxury around him, he was focused on only one thing: Serafina Vale. He had no idea what she looked like, no idea what she sounded like, no idea what type of woman she was. And, for the first time in a long time, that made him curious. He checked his watch. She was 2 minutes late. No woman ever made him wait. Then the door opened. Serafina Vale walked in. Not fast, not slow, just calm and sure of herself. She didn't look around the room like most people did. She didn't seem impressed by the golden lights, the expensive art, or the luxury around her. Her eyes found his immediately. She walked over and sat down across from him like she had already decided she wasn't afraid. "You must be Alexander Hale." Her voice was soft but strong at the same time. Alexander nodded. "And you must be Serafina Vale." She didn't smile. She didn't act shy. She didn't try to impress him. Instead, she said something he did not expect. "Let's not waste time. I know about the bet." Alexander paused. No surprise showed on his face, but inside, he felt a small shock. Damien said nothing about her knowing. Alexander leaned back slightly. "Interesting. And yet you came." Serafina looked straight into his eyes. "I came because I have my own reasons." Alexander waited, but she didn't continue. She simply picked up the menu, as if this was just another normal meeting. Her calmness bothered him. He wasn't used to women acting like this. Most women were nervous, excited, or eager to please him. Serafina was none of those things. After a moment, Alexander asked, "What exactly do you want, Serafina?" She put the menu down and folded her hands. "If we do this marriage, I keep my freedom. I keep my job. I keep my daily life. You don't control me." "I don't try to control people." Serafina raised one eyebrow. "You don't have to say it. You carry it in your voice." That shut him up for a second. She leaned back. 6 months, no rules from you. I live my life the way I always have. And when the time is up, we walk away." Alexander studied her. Her eyes were steady. Her words were clear. She didn't blink. Most women broke under his stare. Serafina didn't even move. He finally said, "Fine, 6 months. And after that, we end it." She nodded once. No joy, no fear. Just agreement. But then, something strange happened. Alexander, for the first time in years, didn't feel like he had won something. He felt like he had just stepped into something he didn't understand, something he couldn't control, something dangerous. Serafina stood up. "Good. Our deal is set. I'll see you again soon." She walked away without looking back. Alexander watched her leave, a sharp thought hitting him for the first time. He might not be the one playing the game. He might be the one being played. 2 days passed before Alexander heard from Serafina again. She didn't call, she didn't text. She simply sent a short message. "Meet me at 4 p.m. Cafe Lumen." That was it. No greeting, no details, no explanation. Alexander wasn't used to such short messages. Most people wrote long emails or careful texts when talking to him, but Serafina? She wrote like she didn't care who he was. Maybe she really didn't. At exactly 4 p.m., Alexander walked into Cafe Lumen. The cafe was small, warm, and simple. Nothing like the places he usually visited. There were colorful plants, soft light, and the smell of fresh bread in the air. He felt out of place immediately. And Serafina chose this place on purpose. He could feel it. She was already sitting at a corner table, wearing a simple white shirt and a black coat. She looked calm, peaceful, but her eyes were sharp. She didn't stand when he arrived. She didn't smile. She simply said, "Sit." It wasn't rude. It was confident. He sat down. Serafina took a sip of her tea and looked at him. "Before we move forward, we need clear rules," she said. "You have your reasons for this marriage. I have mine." Alexander leaned forward. "And what are your reasons?" She didn't answer that. Instead, she continued. "First rule, I keep my job. I don't quit for you." Alexander nodded slowly. "Fine." Second rule, you don't tell me how to dress, where to go, or who to meet. Alexander raised an eyebrow. "I'm not controlling." Serafina gave him a very small, knowing smile. "You don't notice it, but you are." He didn't argue because, deep down, he knew she was right. Third rule, we stay married only for 6
months. No extensions. Alexander tapped his fingers on the table. Why exactly 6 months? She looked directly into his eyes, and for a moment, he felt something cold. Because that's long enough for a deal, and short enough to survive anything. Alexander felt a strange chill at her words. He tried to read her face, but Serafina Vale was unreadable. She continued in her clear, calm voice. Fourth rule, you do not interfere in my personal life. My friends, my work, my time, these stay mine. Alexander nodded, though he didn't like the idea of having no control. And what do you expect from me? He asked. Serafina placed her cup down and said, just honesty. No lies, no tricks, no games. Alexander almost laughed. Honesty? He lived in a world built on smart lies and powerful games. But the way she looked at him made him feel seen, as if she already knew he was hiding something. He asked quietly, do you trust me? Serafina shook her head. No. And you don't trust me either. That's why we need rules. The honesty hit him like a punch. She was right. Alexander wasn't used to women setting rules. He wasn't used to women who didn't want anything from him. But Serafina wanted nothing. And somehow that made him want to know her more. He finally said, all right, I accept your rules. She stood up, picking up her coat. Good. Then the wedding will be small. No guests from my side. Alexander frowned. Why not? She paused, looked at him, and said quietly, there's no one left to invite. Before he could ask what she meant, she turned and walked out of the cafe. And once again, Alexander Hale was left sitting alone, confused, curious, and strangely shaken by a woman he barely knew. But one thing was clear. Serafina Vale wasn't just part of a bet. She was a mystery that would soon turn his whole life upside down. Alexander sat on the edge of his bed, still thinking about the woman from 2 nights ago. The same woman Damien wanted him to win as part of the bet. Her face stayed in his mind like a shadow he couldn't shake off. He didn't even know her name, but something about her felt important. Before he could think more, his phone rang. He looked at the screen. Unknown number. Alexander frowned. He almost ignored it, but something in his gut told him to pick up. He answered. Hello? For a moment, no one spoke. He could only hear slow breathing on the other end. Then a soft female voice said, Don't trust Damien. Alexander froze. Who is this? He asked. But the caller didn't answer his question. She spoke again, this time with fear in her voice. He's not your friend, Alexander. He's using you. The bet is not what you think. Alexander stood up, now fully alert. Tell me your name, he said. Why are you warning me? Another long pause. He could feel she was scared or being watched. Finally, she whispered, Because I know what he's planning next. His heart beat faster. Damien always did crazy things, but planning something? That sounded dangerous. What is he planning? What is he trying to do? But the girl didn't answer. Instead, she said one last thing, something that chilled him. The woman you are looking for, she is not safe. Alexander's eyes widened. Where is she? Do you know her? He asked quickly. But before he could ask more, the call suddenly cut off. Just silence. Alexander stared at his phone, confused and uneasy. Why would a stranger warn him? How did she know about the bet? How did she know about the woman? He took a deep breath. One thing was clear now. This bet wasn't just a game. Someone was lying, someone was hiding something, and someone was watching him. Alexander picked up his keys and walked out of the house. Whatever was happening, he needed answers. And he would start with Damien. Alexander drove fast, his mind full of questions. The warning call kept replaying in his head. Don't trust Damien. The woman you are looking for is not safe. When he reached Damien's mansion, the gate opened like someone was already expecting him. Strange. Alexander parked and walked straight inside without knocking. Damien was sitting in the living room, relaxed, drinking something expensive. When he saw Alexander, he smiled, too calmly. "As expected," Damien said. "You came." Alexander didn't sit. He crossed his arms. "I got a call. Someone warned me about you." Damien raised an eyebrow, acting surprised, but his eyes showed something else. "And you believed her?" he asked softly. "I didn't say it was a her," Alexander replied. Damien's smile faded for 1 second. Just one. But Alexander caught it. "Relax," Damien said, pretending to laugh. "People love making drama, especially when they want to break friendships." Alexander stepped closer. "Where is she?" "The girl from the night of the bet." "Do you know something about her?" Damien leaned back in his chair. He swirled his drink slowly, like he was enjoying the moment. "Why so interested, Alex?" he asked. "She was just a part of the challenge, nothing more." Alexander felt anger boiling inside. "It wasn't nothing," he said. "You know something. Tell me." Damien placed his drink down and looked up with a cold smile. "You want to know the truth?" he asked. "Fine. But you won't like it." Alexander waited. Damien stood up and walked closer until they were face to face. "That girl," Damien whispered, "was not supposed to talk to you again." Alexander's jaw tightened. "What does that mean?" Damien shrugged, casually. "It means she knows things. Things that could ruin what I'm building. And you, my friend, walked right into the middle of it." Alexander's heart started beating harder. So, the warning call was real. The danger was real. "What did you do to her?" Alexander asked quietly. Damien smiled again, slow and dangerous. "Nothing. Yet." Alexander grabbed Damien's collar, pushing him back against the wall. "Where is she?" Damien didn't fight back. He just smiled wider, like he wanted this reaction. "You should be more careful, Alex," he whispered. "Because this game," he leaned close, "has only just started." Alexander's grip tightened. Everything inside him burned with anger and fear. He knew now. Damien wasn't just hiding something. He was planning something. Something dark. And the girl was in danger because of him. Alexander released Damien and stepped back. "This game ends now," he said. Damien chuckled softly. "No, my friend. It ends when I decide." Alexander walked out of the mansion without another word. His mind was clear. He had to find the girl. He had to protect her. He had to stop Damien before everything got worse. Alexander drove without knowing exactly where he was going. He just followed his instinct and the fear in his chest. The girl was in danger. Damien was hiding something, and the game was getting darker. He reached the same street where he first saw her, the night of the bet. The lights were dim, the place almost empty. He walked slowly, looking at every corner. Nothing. He was about to leave when something on the ground caught his eye. A red scarf. He picked it up. It was the same scarf the girl was wearing that night. His stomach dropped. This wasn't good. He looked around again, more carefully this time. Then he noticed a small shop with a security camera pointing toward the street. Alexander walked inside quickly. An old man sat behind the counter. "Sir, please," Alexander said, laying the scarf down. "This belongs to a girl. I think something happened to her. Can you check your camera?" The old man looked at the scarf, then at Alexander's worried face. He nodded and turned at the screen. He rewound the footage. Seconds passed. Minutes. Then Alexander saw her. The girl. She was walking fast, looking scared, turning back again and again as if someone was following her. Alexander leaned closer. "Come on, show me more." Suddenly, a black car appeared in the frame. It slowed down beside her. The girl stepped back. Someone inside the car opened the door. She shook her head. She tried to run. The door opened wider. A hand reached out and grabbed her arm. Alexander's jaw clenched. The girl disappeared into the car. The car sped away. Alexander's heart pounded like a drum. "Do you know this car?" he asked the shopkeeper. The old man rewound the footage again, paused it at the license plate. "I've seen this car before," the man said quietly. "It comes here often. Belongs to a man called Vincent Crane." Alexander froze. Vincent Crane. Damien's business partner, Damien's friend, Damien's fixer. Everything suddenly made sense. The bet, the warnings, the girl. She wasn't running from random danger. She was running from them. Alexander took a deep breath. "Thank you," he said to the old man, gripping the scarf tightly. He walked out of the shop. The night felt colder now. He knew what he had to do. Find Vincent, find the girl, and finally learn what she was hiding and why Damien wanted it buried. Alexander started his car, eyes full of fire. This wasn't a game anymore. This was a race. And he was already late.
Alexander drove straight to the one place he knew Vincent Crane visited often, the Black Lantern Club, a private lounge where powerful men met to do their dirty deals quietly. The place was dark, loud, and full of smoke, but Alexander didn't care. He walked inside with only one thought: find Vincent, find the girl. A tall guard stepped in front of him. "You need a membership card," the guard said. Alexander stared at him. "I'm not here to drink. I'm looking for Vincent Crane." The guard's face changed slightly, just a flicker. He knew the name. No one sees him without... Alexander pushed past him. "I'm not asking," he said. The guard grabbed Alexander's arm, but Alexander twisted free and walked deeper into the club. People watched. Whispers started. Everyone knew this was a dangerous place to make noise, but Alexander didn't care. He reached the back hallway where private rooms were located. Then he heard it. A voice. Deep, calm, cold. Vincent Crane. Alexander moved closer. The door to the private room was slightly open. He peeked inside. Vincent was sitting on a leather chair, talking on the phone. "Is she secure?" Vincent asked. "Good. Damien wants everything done by tomorrow." Alexander's chest tightened. They had her. They were planning something. Tomorrow. He stepped inside without waiting. Vincent slowly ended the call and looked up with a lazy smile. Well, Alexander Hale. What a surprise. Alexander didn't smile back. Where is she? Where did you take the girl? Vincent stood up casually, fixing his sleeves like he had all the time in the world. You should walk away from this, Alex. Some things are too heavy for you. Alexander took a step closer. I'm not asking again. Vincent's eyes darkened. He gave a small laugh. You think you can handle the truth? Damien told me you were stubborn, but I didn't think you were stupid. Alexander clenched his fists. What truth? He asked. Vincent walked closer, stopping just a few feet from him. The girl you're searching for, she wasn't part of the bet. She was part of Damien's past. Alexander felt a cold shiver run through him. What past? He asked quietly. Vincent leaned in. The kind he kills to forget. Alexander's heart dropped. He swallowed hard. What did she see? Vincent smirked. Something she shouldn't have. Before Alexander could ask more, two big guards rushed into the room from behind. Vincent didn't even look at them. Throw him out. Alexander tried to fight, but the guards were strong. They grabbed his arms and dragged him through the hallway. Vincent called out behind him. Stop chasing ghosts, Alex. You don't know who you're protecting. The door slammed shut. The guards threw Alexander outside onto the wet pavement. He got up slowly, his mind racing. The girl wasn't random. She wasn't just part of the bet. She knew something about Damien, something deadly. And now everything made sense. Damien wasn't trying to win a bet. He was trying to erase a witness. Alexander wiped the blood from his lip and looked up. He wasn't stopping. Not now, not ever. He would find her, before tomorrow came.
Alexander jumped into his car and started driving with no clear direction. He only had one thing in his mind. Elara was in danger. Right now. The last thing he heard on the call was a door opening, a man's voice, and Elara's fear. He replayed her words in his head. They're watching me. Damien will do anything. My name is Elara. That name didn't give him a place, but the background noise, maybe it did. He closed his eyes, trying to remember the sound he heard before the call ended. There was a loud echo, like the room was big, empty, not a house, more like a warehouse. His eyes snapped open. Of course. Vincent Crane owned many warehouses across the city, places he used for work that never went on paper. He quickly drove to the first location he knew. When he reached the warehouse, it looked silent. Too silent. He stepped out of his car, moving slowly. A broken light flickered above the old metal door. He pushed it open. The inside was dark, wide, and cold. His footsteps echoed across the empty floor. Elara? He called softly. No answer. He walked deeper. Old boxes, machines, chains hanging on the walls, but no sign of her. He felt frustrated, angry, helpless. Then he saw something on the ground near a pillar. A phone. He picked it up. His heart stopped. It was Elara's phone. He turned it over. On the back, a small sticker. A moon-shaped symbol. He remembered seeing the same symbol tattooed on Vincent's wrist. This wasn't a random warehouse. This was one of Vincent's personal spots, which meant Elara had been here, not long ago, and she didn't leave alone. Alexander's chest tightened. He kept searching, moving deeper until something on the far wall caught his eye. A dark red mark. He walked closer. It was a handprint, a small one. A girl's, Elara's. Alexander's heart dropped. She had tried to fight. She had tried to escape, but she was dragged away. He touched the handprint gently. I'm going to find you, he whispered. I promise. He turned and noticed tire marks leading out the back door. Fresh ones. They moved fast, like someone was rushing. Alexander ran outside and followed the marks with his car. After a few minutes of driving, he saw something on the side of the road, a black glove. He stopped. It looked like Vincent's man wore it earlier at the club. This was their route. He was getting closer. But before he could move again, his phone buzzed. Another unknown message. He opened it. Only one line. Stop searching. Next time, we won't leave her alive. Alexander gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. They were warning him, threatening him, trying to scare him. But they didn't know Alexander. He wasn't going to stop. Not now. Not when Elara needed him the most. He took a deep breath and started the car again. Hold on, Elara, he whispered. I'm coming.
Alexander drove home with shaking hands. Everything Vincent said kept repeating in his head. She wasn't part of the bet. She was part of Damien's past, the kind he kills to forget. Alexander needed answers. But one thing bothered him more than anything. He still didn't know the girl's name. He sat on his couch, staring at the red scarf he had found. Something about it felt personal, like the scarf carried a story. He closed his eyes and remembered the night he first saw her. Her soft voice, her scared eyes, the way she looked at him like she knew him. Why? Why did she look at him like that? His phone vibrated, pulling him out of his thoughts. Another unknown number. Alexander's heart jumped. He answered quickly. Hello? This time the voice was shaking. It was the same girl. Alex, she whispered. For a second, he couldn't breathe. You're alive, he said quietly. Tell me where you are. I'll come get you. No, you can't, she whispered. They're watching me, and they're watching you too. Alexander stood up, pacing the room. I don't care. Tell me?
Alexander followed the tire marks until the road ended near an old abandoned building outside the city. Everything inside him told him, Elara is here. He jumped out of the car and ran toward the building. Inside, the air was cold. The place smelled like metal and dust. Then he heard it, a faint sound. A machine. A timer. His heart pounded. He ran down a hallway until he reached a thick metal door. Behind it, he heard water, splashing against something. Elara, he yelled. Her voice came back, weak and afraid. Alex, I'm here. Alexander's blood turned hot. He threw himself at the door. Once, twice, but it wouldn't break. He stepped back, looked around, grabbed a metal rod lying on the floor and hit the lock as hard as he could. Crack! The lock snapped. He pushed the door open. Inside, Elara sat tied to a chair. Water had already reached her knees. The timer on the wall read 02:12, 02:11, 02:10. Alexander ran to her. Elara, I'm here. You're safe now, he said, his voice shaking. Her eyes filled with tears. I knew you'd come. He quickly untied the ropes. She fell forward and he caught her in his arms. But just as they turned to leave, a voice came from behind. Slow. Dangerous. Damien. He stood in the doorway with Vincent at his side. Well, Alex, Damien said softly, I surprised you. I didn't think you'd get this far. Alexander stepped in front of Elara protectively. Move, Alexander said. This ends tonight. Damien laughed quietly. You think you can stop me? After everything we built together? You didn't build anything, Alexander snapped. You destroyed it. Vincent moved forward first. Alexander didn't think. He acted. He swung the metal rod, hitting Vincent in the arm. Vincent dropped his weapon and fell back. Alexander grabbed Elara's hand. Run! They sprinted down the hallway. Damien yelled behind them, furious. Don't let them leave! Alexander and Elara reached the exit. He pushed Elara outside first, then followed. They jumped into his car. Alexander revved the engine and drove away fast. Behind them, the building lights flickered as the water room burst open. Damien and Vincent stood at the entrance, watching the car disappear. Damien's face twisted with rage. This isn't over, he growled. A new morning. Hours later, Alexander parked on a quiet hill where the sun was rising. Elara sat beside him, wrapped in his jacket. She looked at him with soft eyes. You saved my life, she whispered. Alexander shook his head. No, you saved mine. You made me see who Damien really is. Elara leaned against him. What now? She asked. Alexander took her hand gently. Now we start over, and next time Damien comes, we'll be ready. Elara smiled, small, but full of hope. Together? Together, Alexander said. The sun rose higher, painting the sky gold. The nightmare was over, for now, but Alexander knew one thing clearly. Whatever Damien planned next, he would face it. He wasn't running anymore, and neither was Elara. The story closed, but their future had just begun.